to keep standing up for farming until there are changes.
But we, the people, are the power, aren't we? You know, if we don't stand up now, we're not going to have an open house chance.
Reeves, the worst Chancellor in history.
Not going to increase the taxes that working people pay, their income tax, their national insurance and their VAT.
The highest tax-raising budget in history. Then she said she wouldn't do it.
Right. So GB News just dropped a poll and, wait for it, 99% of their viewers reckon Rachel Reeves' latest budget has left them worse off. 99%. That's not just a bad result, that's the kind of number you'd expect if you asked people whether they enjoyed getting a parking ticket. And honestly, after this budget bombshell, before you continue, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more updates on this channel. Thank you. Keir Starmer's probably wishing he could just park himself somewhere far away from Westminster, because this is turning into an absolute nightmare for Labour. Welcome back to UK Political Insight, where we cut through the political nonsense and give you the real story. I'm bringing you multiple updates today because British politics never sleeps. And frankly, neither do the controversies. So if you're new here, smash that subscribe button because you're going to want to stay in the loop. Today we're diving into Rachel Reeves' budget announcement that's got nearly everyone from the GB News audience feeling properly mugged off. And trust me, when 99% of people agree on anything in British politics, you know something's gone spectacularly wrong. So let's rewind a bit. Rachel Reeves, our Chancellor of the Exchequer, finally unveiled her budget for 2025. Now, budgets are supposed to be these grand moments where the government lays out their vision, shows us how they're going to make our lives better, and generally tries to convince us they know what they're doing. Instead, what we got was a masterclass in how to disappoint almost everyone simultaneously. It's like ordering a takeaway, waiting 2 hours, and then receiving someone else's cold leftovers. Cheers, Rachel. The big headline? Income tax thresholds are staying frozen until 2030 to 2031. Another 3 years of fiscal drag, which is just a fancy way of saying more people are going to get pulled into higher tax brackets as their wages go up, even though their actual spending power isn't really increasing because, inflation exists. It's like being on a treadmill that keeps getting faster while someone insists you're making progress. Over 1.7 million people are now set to pay more income tax because of this freeze. That's not a small number. That's roughly the population of Greater Manchester suddenly finding themselves with lighter wallets. And here's the kicker. Reeves actually admitted this would hit working people. The exact group Labour spent the entire election campaign promising to protect. Remember all those speeches about standing up for ordinary workers, about not letting them carry the burden? Yeah, about that. Reeves has now turned around and said everyone needs to make a contribution, which is political speak for, sorry not sorry, we're taking your money anyway. It's the equivalent of promising your mate you'll definitely pay them back this time, then ghosting them when payday rolls around. But wait, there's more, because this budget wasn't content with just freezing tax thresholds. Oh no, Rachel Reeves decided to have a proper go at the state pension system as well. She's announced an overhaul that could see thousands of people losing out on full pension payments. Now, pensioners are generally not the group you want to upset if you're trying to maintain any sort of political capital, but here we are. It's like the government looked at one of the most vulnerable groups in society and thought, you know what, let's make their retirement planning even more stressful. Brilliant strategy. And if you're one of those lucky folks who've moved abroad but still pay voluntary Class 2 national insurance contributions, well, tough luck. Reeves is abolishing those too. So basically, if you're living overseas and trying to do the right thing by keeping up your NI payments to protect your future pension, the Chancellor's just told you to jog on. It's almost impressive how many different groups this budget manages to upset in one go. Now, GB News, being the people's champion they fancy themselves as, decided to ask their viewers how they felt about all this. They ran a poll with a simple question. Do you feel better off or worse off after this budget? And the results were absolutely brutal. 99% said worse off, 1% said better off. 1%? That's basically a rounding error. That's your weird uncle who still thinks Brexit hasn't happened yet and everything is going brilliantly. For a government that's supposed to be delivering hope and change, this is catastrophic. Let's put that in perspective. If this were a restaurant review, the place would be shut down by environmental health. If it were a film, it would make Cats look like The Godfather. This is genuinely one of the worst reception numbers I've ever seen for a major policy announcement. Keir Starmer must be absolutely fuming. He's probably sat in number 10 right now with his head in his hands, wondering how his Chancellor managed to unite 99% of GB News viewers against Labour. That takes a special kind of talent. Over in the House of Commons, Kemi wasn't about to let this opportunity slip by. The Conservative leader came out swinging, calling Starmer's government a slow-motion car crash. And honestly, that's being generous. A slow-motion car crash at least has the decency to be dramatic. This feels more like watching someone reverse into a bollard repeatedly while insisting they're an excellent driver. Badenoch even called for Reeves to resign, which is pretty spicy, but given these poll numbers, you can see why she's going for the jugular. But let's talk about some of the other goodies buried in this budget, shall we? Because it's not just about frozen tax thresholds and pension chaos. Reeves has also decided to increase income tax charges on savings. So if you've been sensible, put some money aside, and are trying to earn a bit of interest, congratulations, you're now being penalized for it. There's also an increase to dividend tax, which hits anyone with investments. And if you've been using salary sacrifice pension contributions to try to be clever with your tax planning, well, there's now a limit on those tax advantages too. It's like the government looked at every possible way people might be trying to secure their financial future and decided to stick a tax on it. Financial prudence, punished. Investing for retirement, taxed. Saving for a rainy day, more tax, please. Now, to be fair, pensioners did get something positive out of this budget. There's a 4.8% rise coming, which adds roughly £574 a year to the new state pension and £439 to the basic state pension. That's actually a decent increase, and it'll help a lot of older people deal with rising costs. But here's the thing. When you announce a pension rise in the same breath as overhauling the system so thousands might lose out on full payments, the good news gets completely drowned out. It's like giving someone a tenner and then immediately asking them for 20 quid back. What's really striking about this budget is how comprehensively it's broken Labour's election promises. They campaigned on protecting working people. They talked about fairness, about making sure the wealthy paid their share while ordinary folks got a break. Instead, we've got fiscal drag pulling millions into higher tax brackets, pension changes that'll hurt thousands, and a whole raft of tax increases on savings and investments that hit exactly the middle-income earners Labour claimed to champion. It's political malpractice on a grand scale. And the timing couldn't be worse for Starmer. His government is still relatively new, and already they're hemorrhaging goodwill faster than you can say early election. These GB News poll numbers are genuinely shocking because they show an almost complete absence of public support for this budget. When 99% of respondents are against you, that's not just a policy disagreement, that's a full-blown rejection. That's the political equivalent of being booed off stage at the Apollo. The broader problem here is trust. Labour won the election partly because people were exhausted with conservative chaos. They wanted stability, competence, and a government that would actually deliver on its promises. Instead, what we're seeing is a chancellor who's willing to break campaign pledges barely months into the job, and a prime minister who seems powerless to stop the negative headlines piling up. Fiscal drag affecting working people despite promises to protect them, pension overhauls causing uncertainty for thousands, tax increases on savings and investments hitting exactly the middle-income earners Labour claimed to champion. It's political malpractice on a stage. So where does this leave us? Well, Keir Starmer's got a serious problem on his hands. When your chancellor delivers a budget that 99% of one news outlet's viewers think makes them worse off, you don't just brush that under the carpet. This is a warning sign that Labour's economic message isn't landing. People don't feel protected. They don't feel like their interests are being prioritized. They feel mugged off, frankly. And in politics, perception quickly becomes reality.